Okay. Hello, everyone. It is exactly 2 o'clock Stockholm time. And good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to our webinar. Maybe let's wait 1 minute more to let people get to the link. Okay, let's get going then. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Ayca Ozkan, and I work as service design lead at Futurice Stockholm, and I will be the moderator today. A little bit about Futurice. Futurice is an international digital engineering and innovation company, and we create digital products and services, and we co-create a resilient future together. Today, we're going to be talking about turning your data and AI into money and looking into how data and AI are changing what companies sell and how they make money. So with me today, I have two amazing speakers. We have Joakim Heijbel. There he is. And Joakim is the Chief Digital Officer at Bromma, an independent part of the Cargotec Industrial Group. And he's the hands-on leader for all Bromma's digital and IT programs, including responsibility for financial outcomes. And he has a broad experience from industries, including high-tech, telco, retail, energy, shipping, and public. And he is a very valuable sparring partner for any business leader working within digital. And we have Mika Ruokonen. Mika.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. And Mika is an expert in AI-driven business transformation at Futurice. And his particular area of interest is how data and AI can transform what companies sell and their revenue models with a view to developing pioneering commercialization strategies. And that is exactly what we will talk about today. And before we move on to Mika's presentation, I'd like to remind each other about some rules of engagement for the webinar. So the first one is, we will have pauses where you'll have a chance to ask questions, and we will use the Q&A functionality for that. You can find it on the bottom of your screen, the Q&A function, and that'll open a new window for you where you can enter your questions. And you might want to watch out, because if you're using several screens, the Q&A might open on your other screen. And I will be picking the questions to the session and asking them to our speakers. And we will make sure to answer all of the questions you have, either during this webinar or after when we send out an email. And having said that, we will also share the webinar video and the presentation afterwards with you. Another one is, please mute yourself, because it's easier for all of us to follow it in a better, smoother way. And also, please avoid using your camera if you would like to show yourself, also great, but I think it'll help us save the bandwidth and hear this better. So without any further ado, I'll have our first speaker, Mika.
All right, hello, can you hear me? I think you can. Cool, hey, hello, this is Mika. Just a short introduction of me that came already, but yeah, I've been working for Futurice for about 3 years now in various roles related to business management, related to sales and customer relationships. And since November last year, I've been spending more time on data and AI related issues. And of course, in a company like Futurice, you easily bump into data and AI, of course, in a typical role. But since November, I've been working extensively on this topic and putting more energy and putting more time on this one. I'm doing my best now today to share some results of the latest study and latest work that we have done at Futurice. So this is the topic of the day. And just to start with a challenge. So when I started to look at data and AI as a topic, really from the business angle, from the business model side, I started to read a lot. I read many books and articles and presentations. There's always this promise that, hey, data and AI will enable completely new business models. And then if you ask the nasty question that what are those business models exactly, then you get very little answers. So I felt that there's a gap. There's clearly is a need for more information. Is there somebody who might structure this topic somehow that for any executive, they want to take more business value out of data and AI, they would have more models and more thinking frameworks for that. And in fact, when I speak with executives, they often complain that they don't yet get enough business value out of their good data and AI assets. So this clearly seems to be a challenge also. So companies often are working extensively and intensively on the technical side of things, but then when it comes to business, then there are still some steps to take. And what I've been working on is basically described here. So there's the general challenge that I've been having and trying to solve. And these bubbles here on the left-hand side, these are important as well. So I've been focusing my thoughts on what is sold. This is the offering side. So how can you use data and AI to change the offering that you have in the firm? And then how money is made. This is about revenue models. So how do you commercialize? How do you make money with these assets that you have? In contrast, if you see the third bubble here below, how work is done, this has not really been in my scope because this is all about this optimization of operations. So saving costs or improving ways of working in the company. I felt that, well, there's quite a lot of talk about that already and quite some initiatives at Futurice, but also in our via client companies as well. So better to focus on something, and I chose these two bubbles here above, and hopefully you can keep these in mind because I come back to this slightly later when I introduce a little bit of the results that we have put together, and still a bit to justify why this topic and why this would be important. Well, I think this slide was actually originally made even before the corona pandemic crisis that we currently have here every day, but still I think many of these things are even more valid than ever before. So companies often see rapid changes in their business environment, customer attitudes changing, global competition getting tougher, commoditization, old models perhaps becoming redundant, as we have seen now in the corona times. It's difficult to have a stable and sustainable and good business under these circumstances. So then it's all about resilience. So how can you build resilience in the business, and how can you perhaps reduce dependency on your legacy business, or stay relevant to your customers and differentiate from competition and so on. Very often when I speak with executives about this data and AI opportunity, they often describe it as a sort of a second leg. So that yes, we have the old legacy business, traditional business, which is doing fine, or there are some changes and we are on a transformation journey and we're looking into new business models and new ways to harness our data and AI commercially. So this is often the story, and this is the situation in companies. So to start with that, and maybe to also justify why this topic is important. So we actually decided to do a little bit of polling today. So starting with the first poll, there will be two polls today, but the first one comes already now. So maybe you in the audience, the poll will now open. It will stay open a few seconds at least, not too many minutes, but you can see the changes. And what do you think? Relevant, not relevant? I can see the results here live. Quite some answers coming already. So far, 50% saying that yes, absolutely very relevant. Even more. Maybe it's a good also check for myself that am I talking about right things and is this relevant? And maybe you are kind of a particular group of people because you have joined the webinar today. So maybe that also has an influence. So those people who say that this is not relevant, maybe are not here today, but at least we get the poll a little bit what we see. All right. Looks to me that exactly 50% say that yes, absolutely very relevant, and somewhat relevant to 35%, and the last 15% might be relevant. Okay, looks clear to me. Hey, let's move on. Then do the models, and this is now really the kind of the essence of everything. So kind of summarizing what I have identified, and as a background information. So as I said, I started to work on this in November last year, and then I did co-creation work with total about 20 companies, speaking with them that, hey, how do you see this happening, and what kind of changes have you made in your offering, and how is this all coming together? And then based on those discussions, I ended up having these 8 different offering options. And this is like a playbook, really. This is like the kind of sphere of opportunities for companies to think about. So if they have data, if they have AI, these kind of assets, how can they harness them in business? Starting from the left, there's a Tesla example. It's a car. If you go to buy a Tesla, you're most likely are going to buy a car, but it comes with plenty of data and also plenty of these AI functionalities, such as the self-driving functionality and things like that. The second one is a pure selling raw data case. This is a Roomba electronic robotic vacuum cleaner running there in the apartment, and Roomba is providing the apartment measuring data to Apple, for example, who is then developing these home appliances such as Siri. So for Apple, it's interesting to understand what's the distance between a lamp and a sofa and things like that. So relevant data to Apple. The third one is Tamro. It's a Finnish pharmaceuticals value chain operator, I would say distributor even. They playing a role there between pharmacies and drug manufacturers. So moving goods there in the value chain, selling analysis and reports. So letting pharmacies know what kind of drugs and what kind of products are coming, and then letting the pharmaceutical companies know where there's demand for their products and so on. So playing an important analysis and reports role. The fourth one is a data platform example. Facebook is a typical one. Collecting data using algorithms, then having a platform, and then selling advertising. There are several platform examples in the world how you can actually take your data and AI assets and use platforms to deliver those. Then selling AI assets. Firstbeat is a good example. They are developing these products for heart monitoring. They have this algorithmic technology to measure the heartbeat of people, and then once they get that done, then they offer this algorithmic offering to Polar or Suunto, these kind of companies who are, for example, developing sports watches. So selling AI assets is this model. Okay, moving forward. Now we go to more kind of service-oriented models. So now we are reinventing the service business thanks to data and AI. So if the first ones were more product-oriented, now we are entering the service business side. And the first one is IBM Watson, for example. IBM basically tells to its dear customers that, hey, why don't you give your data to us? We use our Watson, we do the analysis, we do a consulting project, and then we deliver the results. So it's really like a consulting company type of an offering in the data and AI world. Then moving forward, selling outcomes. This is a Kalmar example. Kalmar is part of the same corporation, Cargotec, as Bromma here, our case study today. They're selling outcomes. So yes, they do sell these cranes, as in the picture, to harbors to lift things, but they also serve this kind of operating the harbor and selling outcomes, selling harbor operations, whereby all these cranes, software, automation, maintenance, everything comes in a package. And obviously, if you have data, if you have AI, you're well positioned to optimize those operations of your customer. Finally, selling capacity. MAN Trucks and Bus is a good example there. Yes, they do sell trucks, but they also sell truck capacity. So instead of buying a truck, you can buy truck for your use. And again, data and AI helping MAN to understand better the needs of the customers, and then providing these data and AI-enabled services to their clients. So this is kind of the big picture of the offering side. And now it gets a little bit more complex. Sorry for that. I apologize. But of course, then as I started with these two bubbles, so what is being sold and how money is made, then we come to this kind of a matrix or playbook, if you wish. You can see the verticals there. These are the same 8 offerings, as you can see. So from selling existing offering, the Tesla example, to selling data, selling platforms, and everything there. Then the rows are revenue models. And obviously, this is quite a lot of information now suddenly coming and popping up. So don't try to learn everything by heart immediately, but just to show that this is kind of a landscape. This is the kind of the opportunities that companies have, depending a bit on the industry, depending on their business situation and things like that. So for some selling raw data might be a perfect option. And if that happens, then for example, if they're selling data dumps, they might consider selling them as a product, kind of per each piece. Or if they have this continuous data provision service, then they could, for example, apply a licensing or subscription model, a monthly fee or things like that. Then to take another example, if a company chooses to take these selling data platforms as their offering, what they want to offer to their customers, then of course there are some obvious candidates there, for example, this licensing and subscription model, or these various brokerage type of revenue models could also be considered and are very typical. And the message here being that, well, nothing is forbidden. There are many opportunities for companies to harness the data and AI assets in business, craft offerings first, and think that, okay, how do I set a revenue model here? However, some of them might be more likely, as it says here. Maybe this likely is kind of a more stronger recommendation. Hey, these are typical. These often seem to work. And then these green ones are more kind of worth testing. Something that, hey, might work, might be worth testing, might be actually interesting to provide to some pilot customers to see if they would like to buy this or pay this in this kind of format. Maybe one thing that might be a question mark to many listeners is this business model overturn. So what exactly is that? That is the row there below, and with that I basically mean that the company basically does so that it gives everything else for free, but only keeps the data, and the data as such has so much value that it makes sense to build the entire business around data monetization and give everything for free. This is rather radical, I would say, as you might imagine, but still it happens, and there are plenty of examples of that. So just making money with data might be feasible for some. All right, hey, we shall have 2 quick stops here in between. Here comes the first one. Ayca, maybe you can help us. Do you see any good questions? Maybe we take 1 or 2 here, then we continue.
Okay, I'm checking it right away. So far, we don't have any questions. Maybe in the second pause we'll have more, or wait, we have actually, one question, someone asking, these are very interesting. Is there a way to get the matrix and some material?
Oh yes, I think that will happen. So let's make a shareable piece of this presentation so that you can get back to those and think of them from your own business perspective, which one of them would be most relevant to you.
Yes, and we have one more question. Could you elaborate more on the value of data?
The value of data. That is an interesting. That's a multifaceted, of course. There are many opportunities being the business optimization side. Then data as a tradable asset. Can you trade data with some other companies? Can you sell data? Can you turn data into new service concepts? Can you improve your investment decisions with data? Can you improve your product development operations with data? There are so many opportunities. This is really broad question, but maybe at least some examples are here.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Hey, let's move on. And just a reminder, there will be another pause also for questions. So keep your questions for a second and come back. But hey, when I be speaking with companies about data and AI, it very often comes to this maturity of the company. Again, as you can see, it's a slightly complicated slide and too much text, so no need to know everything by heart. But just to give you a kind of an overview, that companies in each and every industry, they are in very different kinds of stages. So some of them are typically beginners, so no real experience with data and AI yet. Maybe the value of data and AI is still unclear, or no clear roles or processes or things like that for handling data and AI, and also lack of capability as well. Whereas then on the right hand side, some companies might actually call themselves champions, even that the data and AI critical assets of the firm. They are harnessed in many ways in business. Everything seems clear. They are all these governance models. They are cloud solutions. They are platforms, tools, and continuously improving everything. And then also strong capabilities and data scientists in the core of the business and everything in between. And when I speak with companies, they typically are in stages 2 to 4. To be honest, but just to give 2 examples, the first one is from the construction industry. Typically, these firms, due to the nature of the business, these are somewhat in the explorer and beginner side of things, because basically many of these things in the construction industry are based on pen and paper. For example, our markings, for example, drawings of the buildings. So when you have physical things and not everything digital, then obviously you have less data available, and then those also maybe lower maturity. Whereas then the champion side and these advanced companies could perhaps be found from these kind of online businesses or digital platforms or marketplaces, where often there might not be much more than just the digital business, and then your readiness to do these things might actually be way higher. And also then if you look at data and AI from the business perspective, then it might be a smoother avenue to take and to go forward. Here comes the second poll. What do you think? What is your maturity in your organization? Again, feel free to shoot. You should see it there. Response is coming fast, looks good. By the way, there is no right or wrong answer. So if you feel that you are still in the beginning phase, that's totally fine. Well, okay, that lastly leads to me looks now that this intermediate stage is the one that is most dominant. This, frankly speaking, is not really surprising me too much. So I think it's very often so that the companies are somewhere in between. It's very rare that a company says that yes, we are the perfect champions of everything when it comes to data and AI. But on a journey, I would say. Good. Yeah, and some beginners still. 4 beginners, 9 explorers, 19 intermediate, and 4 advanced also. Yeah, so this is the distribution of the answers of this poll. Looking good. All right, hey, moving on. One point of view, maybe something that might be interesting to you many, is a culture point of view. So how does your culture look like? How does your leadership look like? How do you do business? How do you organize your company, and how do you operate? Starting from the left is this classic here industrial way of working and a way of deciding. So the leadership decides and the rest will obey. So this is pretty straightforward and classical hierarchy, good old way, which is very rapidly becoming obsolete. Maybe the one in the center is more kind of modern innovation focused. I might even call Futurice one of these. So they are very strong autonomous teams making decisions and very entrepreneurial spirit, and people try to fail fast. If they want to fail, then it's better to do it early and creating MVPs and so on. And then finally, on the right-hand side is this data and AI culture, which is then much more about finding data or calculating probabilities or predicting things and identifying data sources. And maybe the thesis here and the statement here is that the more the company is between the The one in the middle and the one on the right-hand side. Maybe innovation in the core, thinking of these new opportunities, actively looking for new business opportunities. Then also understanding data and AI broadly in the organization, understanding what they could enable them new business and how to use them in daily life. That would be also beneficial. When it comes to this data and AI commercialization, there might be other reasons why this classic industrial might be a perfect one in certain circumstances, but still this culture and leadership point of view is super important and needs to be taken into account. Hey, I will quickly go some examples now. There were, as you remember, there were these 8 models and there were some company examples, but here's some more. And I call these killer concepts. So some things that work and some things that people are using already. So the first one is sell customers their own data back. Rather straightforward, collect data on your customers, analyze, make comparisons, make insights, sell them back. Glaston, a manufacturing company in Finland, is a good example of that. They have these payable offerings where customers see their own data when they pay. Another one is about this data and AI optimized platform. Again, we are in the platform business side. Here's an Airbnb example, but there are numerous other good examples of this when companies take a role in the middle. So they are matching supply and where they are matching demand, bringing these together and using data and AI to optimize it. The third one is more kind of replacing ownership with access. And here's a Cramo example related to equipment and tools, optimizing, again, demand for something and supply, but doing it from this kind of ownership replaced by access. So people can access these things using digital tools, and of course, data and AI helping there to optimize it. And finally, turning your core competence into an algorithm. Here's an example from a pharmaceuticals industry. There's a pharma company, and there are many of them who say that, well, actually, if we collect data, we can pretty well predict illnesses. So that's our core competence. We really know how to use data to predict illnesses, and we can turn that into an algorithmic product. So again, something to consider and might be relevant to you. Q&A.
Yes, we have some questions. So the first one says, it feels fairly straightforward and understandable to improve your core product and services with data. Predictive maintenance, selling products as a service, etc. I feel that commercializing data as a standalone product is a lot more challenging. What might be the typical low-hanging fruits in data as a standalone product?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to speak with the customers, or speak even with vendors or partners that who might have the need for data. Yeah, and can you use data as such? Is it the raw data that is making them happy if they would get access to that? Or is it actually so that you actually have to convert the data and reports and things like that? So I think service design approach is very often useful in that, trying to map these problems worth solving and thinking them from this data angle. Is data an answer? Could it help?
Mm-hmm. Great. We have another question, and that one says, how do you see the value AI has brought to data analytics? What has been achieved so far? Any example in Futurice's executed projects? Yeah, well, I think it's super important. And as you see, I'm handling these two together because I'm a firm believer of this combination. Of course, you can say that, okay, why don't you, Mika, just talk about data? But I feel that nowadays, all these AI applications and all these kind of advanced analytics make it so much more valuable for companies, and they enable these kind of business model changes. And this is more, to me, this is more like a continuum from pure data provision all the way to these sophisticated artificial intelligence functionalities and applications and everything in between. But I kind of talk about them as a bundled thing, because I think nowadays it makes a lot of sense to have those both combined. Great. Cool. Hey, maybe we save some questions to the very end, so we have still one more Q&A session coming up. Writing your questions down, and we will cover them hopefully at the end session. Yes.
And as promised, we will try our best to answer them afterwards by email if we don't have enough time today. But hey, I don't have too many slides left. I'm starting to conclude now, and we are soon moving to this Bromma case. But to show you this one. So this is how I've been structuring my thoughts. You know, if you ask that, hey, I'm an executive, I want to use data and AI for business value. What should I do? And here are kind of the answers that I've been coming up. So these 6 steps. So start from the customer. Talk with the customer. Hey, do they have some problems worth solving? Would they benefit from data and AI? Would they have some of these needs that you are not aware yet? Again, use service design approach to understand that. Then think about your maturity. As we've seen earlier here, it's very good to understand. Are we ready? Are we ready to do this? What does it take? Do we have all the assets in place? Is our technology good enough? Is our commercial thinking good enough? And are we ready to do it? Ambition, often it makes sense to agree that what do we really want to achieve? What is the common goal? Are we all committed to this? And do we have the support from the organization? And is the goal clear? And a business case, of course, it makes sense to look at it from the commercial point of view. Is there enough value? Do the customers value this? Is it valuable? What is the size of the investment? How much do I put money into this? And do I really know that there will be revenues coming if I make the investment? And only if these 4 things are saying that, well, yes, makes perfectly sense, then steps number 5 and 6 are more about executing, you know, setting up the projects and prioritizing a roadmap, and finally thinking of the culture side that we also discussed earlier. So this is more or less the kind of the path. Of course, it's easier rather than, you know, starting to do everything at the same time. It often is much more useful to take this kind of stepwise approach and go step by step. But hey, that was the introduction part. Hopefully not too long, hopefully inspiring and useful to you. But hey, let's move to the Bromma case. Joakim, can you hear me?
All right, yes, I can. And you hear me well?
Yes, I can. Good stuff. Hey, could we start maybe using this slide maybe to introduce Bromma a little bit, and also yourself? What are we talking about? Who are you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there might be a point to that. But before jumping into that, so first, thank you for having me here. And I think you have some quite valuable insights that you are presenting here today. For a company like us, we're a traditional industrial company, and we have been working around these questions for a long time, but still structuring the business models, it's quite helpful. But so quickly on Bromma then, we are the world's leading manufacturer of crane spreaders. And crane spreaders, well, what is that? Well, it's literally big hooks, you can say. You attach to big cranes and you lift containers. These hooks, they tend to be the size of a bus. They weigh some 12 to 13 tons. So quite big, very sturdy machines. They operate in probably the toughest environment you can imagine. So from extremely cold to extremely warm, always very roughly treated. So interesting products, and I think for us the interesting thing is that we have some maybe 60% of the world markets of these type of machines. So anywhere around the world you go, if you go to a seaport terminal, you would see, you have a fair chance of seeing this Bromma logo on very big letters on the spreaders hanging from the cranes. Then. So that's very much about who we are.
All right, and greetings from Helsinki, by the way. Where are you based?
So I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden, but we have our headquarters in Singapore. So and we're a fairly small team. We have maybe some 200-300 people in the administration and another 600-700 in the manufacturing. But we are spread out across the globe. So a few people here, a few people there, basically.
All right. So remote work, it must be rather familiar to you in this kind of a setup, then I would assume.
It is, absolutely. But of course, these times they are unusual also to us. Not least not being able to travel is making our life very unusual, I must say.
All right, all right. Hey, I prepared some questions for you. So now getting to this data and AI topic, of course, which we have on the table today. So maybe to go through these kind of topics with you. Maybe to start from your ambition. We discussed it earlier a bit, you know, what do you want to achieve, but how would you describe your ambition at Bromma?
Yeah, I think we have a very strong ambition to achieve something in this space. We have also always had innovation at the core of our DNA, and I think that is a very strong, has a very strong link to our market success. And when I look forward, I see more and more of that innovation coming from the digital space, so coming from data, coming from AI, digital technologies in general. If you look at our industry, in the shipping industry, and if you zoom even all the way down to spreaders, it's an extremely traditional business. So if you look at other type of industries, particularly if you go to business to consumer, there these transitions, they have gone quite far. But if you look in our type of industry, it's now that they are coming, but now they are coming at full scale and things move really fast. So I think if you have been able to get by quite well up until now, but at this point now, you need to start to have an ambition if you want to be in the game long term.
All right, so you're talking about this innovation in the DNA. Sounds good to me, and also then the traditional industry. Is it your opinion, or is it the whole industry saying the same, that hey, we actually are still, we have some miles to take?
No, but I think there is the self-awareness. Myself, I've been working in quite many different places, having a background as a consultant myself. So, but when I talk to people, I mean, there is very strong interest, but still, I mean, a lot of grease under the nails, and then they're big machines. They're cool.
All right.
But,
all right. Well, hey, you saw the maturity model there a few slides back. Your take on that? What's your maturity?
Yeah, I think the more technical you get on the different dimensions there, the more mature we are, I would say. So we started working with IoT technology and cloud technology already some 10 years ago. And if you look at how the technology functioned then and how it was then, it was obviously a lot more immature, very data-centric, not so user-friendly, you can say. But this has been very important for us because we've been learning a lot throughout these years, going through these steps and the processes. And then some two and a half years ago, we made a strategic decision that, well, we have been working with this a little bit on the side, and now we want to make this one of the core strategic focus areas. So we realized we needed to reinvent, and we needed to find new ways of working here. And then it was clear, so up until now, or up until then, we have been working very technology driven, you can say. And now we said, well, we need to find a different angle. So we need to put the customer at the center. We need to focus on business value, but we obviously not forgetting the technology. You need technology, you need to be really good at technology, but you also need the business perspective. So I would say a little bit here and there across your model. Some places, particularly the technology, much more mature, and then maybe on the business and organization, we're still learning by the day.
But the steps that you mentioned there that you have taken there from this kind of data-centric to more kind of business value and customer-focused ways of work, sounds to me like a pivot, really, that you have turned the direction, maybe to a good direction. I would say that it sounds very promising to me, at least.
Yeah, it is in a sense. It's I think my daily work is a little bit like running a startup company inside a bigger company. So you need to do everything you talk about. You need to experiment, and you need to go iterative, and you need to fail fast and move forward, basically.
All right. But hey, moving forward, then the progress and steps so far, how would you describe your key steps perhaps along this journey?
Yeah. So we have by now, since those 2.5 years ago, we now have two new IoT equipment monitoring applications. One we built, the starting point was to build an application that we could believe in for our own internal service technicians. Because these are heavy machines. They are machines you're supposed to live with for a very long time, 10, 15 years maybe. And then if you have a machine like that, it needs to be taken care of. So you need to maintain it, you need to work with it, you need to treat it well. And so the starting point, since we had been at this so long and we had these applications that were working technically, but they were hard to use. It was tough to be a user with those applications. So we wanted to prove that we can do this. So we went quite fast, built something internal that's in place, and then we moved on to a customer application, and that was then launched some 8 months ago, maybe. So we launched a customer application, a subscription-based IoT monitoring application for our machines, which allows them to then assess the health of their machines. So typically you have a fleet, you have, I don't know, 5 machines, 10 machines, or even 100 machines. And you need to understand the stage of each machine. And normally, in most cases, you're quite blind. So with these applications, you can get a snapshot of, well, this is a healthy machine, this is a not so healthy machine. And we've been trying to work very gently, but still a little bit with gamification. So I like to say that I was watching my kids playing Fortnite, and they and the health points, it's very appealing concept. So we work with health, spreader health, and this is targeting the one key most important KPI in our industry. So the key KPI is uptime. So keeping the equipment up means you have a high productivity. So we target everything we do towards this KPI to ensure that we have a very clear business value. Then for now, this is completely heuristics based. So we have developed our own algorithm, how we calculate this health. But we have also started experimenting with AI to see if we can use that to maybe go one step further and draw more comprehensive conclusions. But there we're still in the starting blocks, and we have realized that it's one thing to draw conclusions, but it's an entirely different thing to then explain those conclusions and put them into use and take the appropriate actions. So up until now, a quite solid performing heuristics-based, algorithm-based application, but then with some fiddling with AI and hopes to be able to go somewhere there as well.
All right, so you're talking about this equipment health and uptime especially seem to be critical things in your business clearly, and delivering business value. And so experimenting with AI and probably more to come. Absolutely. I would assume. All right, good. Hey, for the next question about the models, let's do so that I will take the slide here so that you can, and we all can see the models one more time. So hey, what's your take on these ones? Which one do you feel are suitable for your business? Which of them are not so much?
Yeah, we actually chose model before we had seen the possible models available. So we made the wrong choice, but we are very much focused on what you call here data platforms with a subscription-based model. And we think the key for us, it's very natural. It's about IT data, it's about the equipment we have and making sure we get good customer value after that. And a key success factor there is this customer value. So, and particularly customer value that you cannot achieve in the traditional business model. So having a disconnected spreader and trying to keep that happy, or having a connected intelligent machine and trying to work with that, we can really achieve something more with this data platform concept. And then there were some questions previously about the value of data. And I think for me, that's an interesting question. which you really need to look at context-based. So if you look, and you were also touching on that. So if you look at our data, the IoT data we get from our type of machines, it's there. I don't see any real business value in trying to sell that data, because that data is it is, well, sometimes you talk about data as the new oil or things like that. And if you look at the raw IoT data, it's, at least our IoT data, it's like very raw crude oil far down below the ground. So you need to, in order to get any value out of that, you need to refine it. And if that analogy is to hold, so you need to add something, you need to analyze that data, you need to draw conclusions, and you need to take your business intelligence and append and improve the data with before it represents any value that anybody would probably be interested in actually paying any money for. So for us, the selling data model, we do not focus so much on that. We might have it as an additional offering over time, more as if you want to do an integration, say. So if you have our type of monitoring application and you want to do an integration into your other systems, well, obviously you might need some data connections, but that would be on a different level. So the raw data, in our use case, not so much. And then when it comes to those more service-oriented models, then for us, which would be a much more transformative model, so selling capacity or selling outcomes, well, there you also, I think, again, you need to look at the context. And if we look at our business model and the way our industry works, there we would really, those models put requirements on the business model that sort of need to be addressed first. So you can probably quite easily create, I don't know, a subscription service to moves. So now you can subscribe to a spreader and you can use it for some time. But if you look in our use case and our machines, they are always extremely highly customized. So there is no second-hand market. You cannot, they are not interchangeable. So if you take this spreader and put it on this crane here, you cannot move it to that crane over there in a different terminal in a different country. So as long as you don't have that interchangeability, these business models become, well, not so viable. You need to have those things solved first. But of course, on the pure service delivery, so maintenance services, those kind of things, there you can absolutely do things, and that we're touching a little bit as well. So a little bit here and there, strong focus on data platforms, not so much on selling data, maybe over time a little bit more on the service side.
Yeah, maybe more traditional services. You're talking about maintenance services, for example, data enabled, or might belong to this category of selling existing offerings if you consider your maintenance as part of your existing business in that sense. So
it could absolutely
depends a bit on how you define it. All right, cool. Hey, let's go back. So 2 questions left. Bear with me. So anticipating next steps. What happens next?
So now we have our first applications, and we are quite confident in them by this point. So we've said from the start that this is the year of business. So now we take this out to the market and we try to build a customer base and get this moving. And we have a very positive, we get very positive signals from the customers. They are extremely interested. And that also, I think, speaks to this, that our industry is moving, because I think customers now, they see that they need to have these new ways of working. But at the same time, it is a surprisingly big change. So today, when you work with spreaders, you typically work reactive. So you touch up and fix your machine, you put it out there and you run it till it breaks. Then you bring it into the workshop, try to figure out why it broke down, and then you fix it up and then you put it out there and run it till it breaks. That's sort of the standard operative model. And if you want to go into these more proactive tools, you also need to change your way of working. And that we hear, not least now with COVID-19 and everyone being under strong pressure, maybe shortly staffed. So this becomes a hurdle to take in, to start working in a new way. So we have a lot of very interesting discussions, very positive, but at the same time, it takes time. If we then, so that's the business side of things. Then on the technology side, well, I'm a very strong believer in AI, and I'm also quite keen on augmented reality. I've seen a couple of really exciting applications where you use AR in equipment maintenance. So around those two areas, I would really like to do some more work and spend some more resources in the future. I actually came from an AI meeting just an hour ago, and we are doing some quite exciting experimenting, but still, yeah, a lot of road to cover before we're there. But AI and AR, I would say.
Yeah, okay. And you're describing here kind of comprehensive transformation. You're talking about the operating model and the commercial side, ways of working even, but then also the technology side. So I think this is a typical case in that sense, that is really, with what it often requires. And hey, the last one, the business impact. Is this the hardest question? I don't know, might be. So
yeah, I think it's both hard and easy. So the business impact from AI and data and the digital side to an industrial company like us. I mean, our whole industry is at the turning point. So up until now, you've been able to be very successful in a very traditional business model. You build good machines, you sell them, and you maintain them, sell some spare parts. But going forward and looking a little bit ahead in time, you need to start to pay attention to data and the values you can create from that data, the value for your customers. And there, I think, if we look some 5-10 years from now, if you work with any type of heavy equipment, definitely with spreaders, you will also be working with data, and you will also be working with data-driven business models. So I think this will be an integral part of your business fabric, if you say it like that. More of that than this would being some kind of separate, completely on the sideline thing. It will go. It will be part of the core offering. So. And I truly hope, I don't know if I said that, but I already now with the application we have now, I want it to be so that, I mean, if you own a spreader, you have the monitoring system. They should go hand in hand. It's not two separate things. They really tie together. So I expect both a gigantic business impact and also quite small. You need to have this to be relevant. You're not going to make a huge amount of money of it, but I think if you don't have it, you're not going to be in the game.
Yeah. It's also this not purely the extra revenues, but also kind of revenues at stake. So you have so much to lose if you don't do it. So kind of makes sense. Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks, Joakim. We went through all the questions now. Very good stuff. Stay on the line. There are plenty of questions. Just to summarize from my side, that this case study also highlights that this is an opportunity for many companies to build new, stable, and scalable recurring revenue streams. And as we have heard, might be also a disruptive business opportunity or opportunity to reposition the business. But as we have heard, might require a lot, such as culture change or increase in maturity or competence development or change management, and these kind of things. But maybe with these words, we should probably move to the questions, and we have some minutes still left.
We have a lot of great questions. So I'd like to start with the first one. Overall, how should we position data strategy and goal setting work? Is it A, part of top level company strategy, B, part of some sort of digital strategy work, C, related to existing product roadmaps, or D, as an independent data strategy work?
Probably integrated, I would say. Joakim is a chief digital officer. You do digital, you do plenty of things, and then you also do data and AI related stuff. So this probably is not like an isolated island, but it's part of your mix. And you also were talking about these complete solutions eventually. So
yeah, I think it's super important that it needs to go through the whole business. And it also needs to be firmly anchored at the top. For us, this is a must-win battle in our corporate strategy. And that really helps, because then it's clear to everybody that it's, even if you don't work with these questions on a daily basis, it's very clear that this is something that is there, it should be there. If it's not there, at least it's coming. So
Great. Another question to Joakim. Do you start working on new data-centered business models using your core competencies / existing product range, or do you start outside of the box?
Well, in our case, it's absolutely very closely tied to our products. As an offering, well, it might not look that different, but to us, both to Bromma as a company and to our customers, it's very different. So, but the starting point is very much what we have, not trying to go crazy in a different direction. And I think for us, it's very important to be incremental and step by step. So we need to have the idea, we need to try it out, and we need to take one step forward, and then we can evolve that idea and take the next step. So, so I'm very pro starting from where you are. If you have a fantastic idea going somewhere completely different, absolutely go for it. But in most cases, I think work with what you have.
Okay. Another question. Collecting data and making it valuable generally goes along or hand in hand with the quantity of the machines, goods, services that the customer have. If customers don't have a lot of these goods, they might opt in for manually data analyzing rather than investing in outsourcing technology. Is there a strategy to bring these small customers into the game?
That's a tough one. Yeah, kind of, yes. But there is also valuable small data. So it doesn't always have to be big data. It could be client-specific, very relevant data. It could be so that if you take small pieces of data from various small customers and put them together and make comparisons and make kind of recommendations, then you still can provide plenty of value. So I think there's a slight misconception even that the data always have to be gigantic data like Google has or things like that. But then in practice, sometimes even having smaller pieces of valuable data, but turning that data into value or proving the value by giving valuable recommendations, for example, could be super valuable. So I wouldn't underestimate small customers or small data sets.
I think you said the magic word, value. So I as long as you can add a clear enough value to the data, something else that the customer don't have themselves already. So a very small example from us was that we didn't know we could do this, but when we started monitoring our machines and or looking what we could do with monitoring, we have some more than 800 type of issues that we are monitoring, and it wasn't clear to anybody, well, if this issue occurs, what should you do then? So we set out on a journey, we thought, to write down instructions for each of these 800 problems. I thought we would be doing that for the coming 2 years. Actually, when I got the right people together, in 6 weeks, we had written 800 instructions that we now have. And that is something the customer doesn't have. That is something we have that we can now bring to this offering to make it relevant, make it interesting. So even if our customer is just having one machine, it can have 800 problems with 800 different solutions. So getting access to that, it's quite attractive. Then, of course, for us, it will be a very, very small customer, but we love to have those small customers as well.
Absolutely. So we are actually now right on time to finish. However, we have 2 more questions. So if you have time to stay and listen to the replies, please do that. But otherwise, for the people that have to leave, I'd like to thank everyone for joining, and also to our amazing guests, Mika and Joakim, for their expertise and valuable insights. So we, as I said before, we will definitely share the webinar video and also the presentation. So I'd like to thank everyone who has joined, and if that's okay with some of you, I'd like to ask the 2 remaining questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. So first one, how does AI help in retail business or any other business in data analytics and different approaches, AI mechanism for analytics? That was a tough one to formulate.
Yeah. As from guys who are very heavily focusing on the manufacturing sector, and our heritage is there perhaps, but maybe from the retail point of view, in the retail industry, this kind of AI technology might manifest in a slightly different way. It might be about analyzing your inventory, or analyzing your pricing, or analyzing your digital sales channels, or sharing data in your value chain to your, let's say, suppliers to see what kind of stock you might keep, or what kind of things you might have in the sale. So these kind of things, it's a slightly different kind of a business, but there are plenty of opportunities as well, and an interesting domain as such. But as said, slightly different because the nature of the business is somewhat different.
Great. And the very final question. Mikko says, thanks for the great illustrative, conceptual yet practical frameworks. What is your view on critical success factors when integrating the company's data capital operations with the data utilization / offering ops? For example, in product and service models seen in early part of your set. Quite often, data and business people tend to operate in silos to some extent at least.
Well, let me give you an example. So as I said, I spoke with 20 plus companies on this topic, and there were some examples when the head of the data science team and the head of business development, they shook hands at the door, which was a very clear sign that was the first time ever that these people met. So I'd like to definitely avoid this kind of situation. So getting these people out of their silos, getting these people to speak to each other, not just once and not by email, but really properly sitting down and looking at business opportunities, yet also these technical enablers at the same time. Really this multifunctional approach would very often work. Maybe Joakim, you agree or disagree. I'm happy to hear your point of view, but just as an example, I think it's not always self-evident that these kind of people talk to each other. So it really makes sense to get people from their silos.
I think you're absolutely right, and I have a bit of the benefit of working in a team that is not too big. So I probably even know most of the company on a first name basis, and that really helps. Otherwise, as you say, these people need to come together, and you need to come together around also business values, because often many of these people are quite technical and have a very important and strong skill set. And maybe you have some business people that don't have the technologist mindset. So getting those multifunctional team together and really look at the real value-adding problems, then I think you have the best chance.
Okay, very final question, I promise. So Stefan says, hello, I probably have a question more directed to Joakim, but rather general. In your equipment offering, is handling data and treating them out at the customer location an important value?
Sorry, could you take the last one there?
In your equipment offering, is handling data and treat them out at the customer location an important value?
I'm not 100% sure I get the question, but I think in general, the data has always been there. So we do a lot of edge computing on the machines, and particularly in this old school use case where you run the machine, it breaks down, and then you try to fix it. Then the data, the onboard edge data, is very valuable for the customer. As a business, we have not been there really. When that machine has been sold, it's with the customer. They handle that side of the process. So and now the big change is that we step into the game and we add our knowledge on top of that data, and then I think we can start creating values. So not 100% sure I answered the questions, but that's at least a little bit.
I think you did. I think you did.
I think so too. Thank you so much. And we got a thank you from Stefan too. So let's wrap this up. Once again, thank you all very much, both participants for really active participation, and also Joakim and Mika for your expertise and sharing these valuable insights. So again, we will share this webinar and also the slides with you in a follow-up email. And you can always reach us, and also make sure to check the futurice.com/data-AI for more information. Thank you. I think.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.